folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show. Comedy on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. And we can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. And just want to bring in a cat who is truly an original artist and somebody who has tried to stay true to his heart throughout his career. He's played with a lot of luminary figures, but has lately found his groove out on the left coast, playing with a myriad of bands, and actually just came out recently with his first project as a leader. Although he means a lot in the lineage of music, because he in many ways learned and is learning from the original masters of this music, and is part of that unbroken chain that will continue to inspire younger peeps to know where real music and how real music is made. Jason Crosby, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hey, Jake. Thanks for having me, man.
It's great to hear you, man. Are you you want to talk for a minute about you're putting something together with the Mother Hips right now?
I'm on my way I'm driving to Oakland from Sonoma. I live in Sonoma, heading to Oakland for Mother Hips recording session that's been going on for over a week now. I was a little late to the party, but I've been there the last 3 days, and some great new tunes brewing.
I wanted to ask you, this is perfect. I don't know if you knew this, but I know you're a Long Island cat. I'm a Stony Brook cat, and
great.
I live in Tucson. But I was transcribing this interview with Barry Melton, and he was talking about hitting the road. When he hit the road, he read those beat books, and he hit the road. And I was like thinking to myself, I'm like, Jason definitely hit the road, but it was not during. It was at a different time than Barry Melton. And I kind of wanted for you to talk about the on-the-road experience, the first on-the-road experience for Jason Crosby.
Well, I kind of look at there's two different ones, two different first times on the road. Because when I was a kid, when I was 13 in 1987, I went on my first tour playing classical music. I was playing viola in the Long Island Youth Orchestra, and we went all over South America, and we played in Cuba. We were the first American musical group to be allowed to play Cuba since Fidel had taken over, and we saw Fidel Castro speak, and it was a super heavy, amazing experience. And I did that actually for the 4 next years. It would be 2-month tours in the summertime, and got to see the world with this orchestra playing a number of instruments, and it was definitely an intense, amazing experience. But then after high school, I went out on the road with this band Solar Circus, which was kind of a Grateful Dead style. They started out as a Grateful Dead cover band, but then they got signed to what was then Relics Records, and had a bunch of original records. And I joined them at that point in their career when they were playing their own tunes, and did cross country tours with them. Like as a 18, I think I started when I was 19. And it was kind of two different schools of touring and of experiences, but both very still in my formative years. And so I would look to those two projects and those two moments that kind of shaped who I am now.
How much of it is? I can't imagine in Cuba that you were doing a lot of psychedelics, but was there a psychedelic component to the Solar Circus element? You know what it is? Those you can say on the road, it is. I was talking to Dan Healy about this. When you combine LSD with electric guitars, that is something very special. That it goes to a new portal. So I'm trying to figure out. Can you weave a little bit on the psychedelic on the road experience for you?
Sure. Well, for me, I don't know about the other guys in the orchestra. They were a little older, but not for me in those days.
Right.
But in the going on the road and with the rock bands, it definitely happened. And I remember the first time that I played on it, and it was of the liquid variety, and as it was getting passed around, the cap of the bottle came loose, and I wasn't intentionally puddled, but I ended up with a puddle in my hand. And all these people were digging in there and putting it on their foreheads, and trying to salvage some for themselves out of my palm. And I remember we was about maybe 5-10 minutes before we went on, and I remember about 40 minutes later, just it starting to kick in, and me looking at my friends, and they were all just laughing at me.
But I mean, this is it. So you were starting to trip really hard on the bandstand and the other cats had dosed as well.
Not the guys on the band. No, they were just friends.
Unbelievable.
A couple of the crew guys, maybe one other band member, but he took the proper dosage. So I was the one that was, and I was the kid. But I've always, it's only enhanced for me. It's never been a problem. I feel like I have such old school training, and I'm more comfortable with the music language than the English language. I
dig.
started playing music. I started playing music when I was 2 years old, and it's just it's like breathing to me. So being a little bit being dosed it only was a new experience, and one that I've enjoyed. I don't do too often, but I do enjoy it.
Well, no, can you, for the audience, I think it's important, how has it enhanced your ability to stretch vocabulary in music, LSD? How has it enhanced it?
I think there's a couple things that maybe I approach differently. I mean, when I'm jamming and with the guys, it's all about listening. And fortunately for me, I was born with perfect pitch, so listening again comes really easy to me, because when I hear a pitch or hear a note, I know exactly what it is, like somebody recognizing a color. So I think that maybe I let go of that a little bit, and just kind of it enhances my ability to kind of just think of things more conceptually, maybe listen to the lyrics a little bit more, maybe listen to just things other than exactly what's going on, pitch-wise and rhythm-wise, but more of a flow of what's happening in the room and with the audience and with the other guys on stage. And I don't know if that's a little abstract.
No. You're talking about a multi-sensory experience. I mean, if you,
yeah.
I mean, could you point to I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, how has it helped you grow as a person on the bandstand? Because I guess what I'm getting at is I never saw the Grateful Dead in person. I mean, I was born in '78. Obviously, it was in Stony Brook. You go back and you look and you can see that it was a hotbed of activity, years before that, with all these cats coming, and there was it was such a palpable. But when I listened to the Grateful Dead, especially my favorite time period, which is the early '80s, which was a very despondent time. I mean, they weren't dosing every night, but their ability to trust each other in the fact that they were going to take chances every single night, all the time, for pretty much, it was the most emboldening experience, and that trust seemed to come, in my mind, from the acid tests. So is there something along the line?
Yeah.
I mean, can you relate that to your own experience? Because I mean, you've been.
I would say that it's almost like an ego eliminator, because
right.
No matter who you are, or what you have or what you've done, if you're sharing that experience, that's where you are. And you're not thinking about any of that stuff. And so I think it brings people together on the same plane that might not be in the same part of their life. They might be way different ages, or been through different stuff, or have their own trip, no pun intended, like their own things, their own drama going on.
Absolutely.
I feel like it kind of eliminates that, which is a good thing. I know it's done that for me. Not that I have these moments frequently, but there's times when you can get dark on the bandstand and be thinking about a bummer relationship, or bummer business situation or whatever, and that doesn't happen when at least to me, like
No.
it really, it can bring the focus back, which is good.
The ego eliminator. I like you're creating vocabulary here on the Jake Feinberg Show. Talking to Jason,
Right on.
taking to Jason Crosby. So this is the other thing I want to talk about is you decided to move to. You're in Sonoma, but you're doing a lot
Yep.
of work in the Marin County area. Obviously, part of the infatuation that I have with all the cats that I've gone after is that there were regional music scenes everywhere in the country at a period of time before we were fully interconnected. And a lot of those enclaves, it was like, it facilitated, the music came out of that community, and the community in many ways was doing psychedelics and stuff like that. So I'm curious in this, because you really are sort of in this mid-tier of the lineage. You're not a graybeard like Lesh and Weir and these cats. You're more in that middle ground. And I'm curious about, in this enclave, the Marin County enclave, how much of the music is coming out of the community, or do the bands seem to be still a little bit disparate? Or how I mean, like I said, you look at San Francisco, you had Sly Stone, Terry, Sons of Champlin, Santana, The Dead. It was all there. They were all collaborating. Obviously, you had Bill Graham as the business genius. Can you talk about the musical enclave of Northern California right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I lived in Marin for the first 3.5-4 years that I came to town, and then recently in the last year moved to Sonoma, just get a little more, little more space and for your money there.
Yeah.
I found a beautiful place in Sonoma, so I just had to jump on it. But I still feel kind of, my girlfriend lives in Mill Valley, and I spend a lot of time in Marin, so I still kind of feel like I'm still a Marin resident. And honestly, it's that community that pulled me out there, literally. I mean, I went out there with God Street Wine in 2012 to do some God Street Wine reunion shows and webcasts and stuff, and that's where I met and connected with Bob and Phil and their community of people, and Phil emailed me straight up a couple months later, invited me to play with him in New Jersey at the Wellmont, and then again with God Street Wine back at Terrapin, and I just took a chance and was like, what, I'm gonna, instead of Phil hired me for a week, I'm gonna stay a month and just see what the scene is all about, because it just intrigued me so much. And that's when I reconnected with Bob, and he was doing these TRI webcasts, We're Here broadcasts,
Sure.
and he had a guest cancel on him, and I was friendly with his manager, and he said, "Hey, do you have any ideas for a guest?" And I did, and I came along, and the guest was a singer, Van Morrison's daughter, Shannon Morrison.
Wow.
And so and I was friendly with her, and she doesn't play an instrument, she just sings. So we did this show, and it was really just Bob and I playing duo, and we just really grooved on one another. And he was like, "Man, would you come back next week?" And I was like, "I was just so happened to be staying extra time," and I was like, "Give me a call." And I don't know if I'd get a call, and sure enough, the following Wednesday, at that point I thought he hasn't called, so I'm not going to go back and do it. And then Wednesday, about an hour before they go live, my phone rings and it says Bob Weir on my phone, which was a new, and he said, "Hey, remember last week when we did that thing?" He's like, "How would you like to come back and do it again?" And we did it again, and and then that just kind of repeated it. We just, I just never looked back. I moved here from New York City, and was doing that weekly with him, and then culminating in a real special episode where Phil was the guest, and we started out, Bob and I played duo. I was playing violin, and then I played piano with him and Phil and Russo. And then they had me sing a Jerry tune. I sang Lazy River Road playing guitar, standing between Bob and Phil. And then Phil had to leave, and they're still live. And Bob's like, "Well, who's going to play bass?" And he looks right at me, and I nod, and they hand me a bass. And, now I'm playing bass with Bob, doing Friend of the Devil with Cass McCombs and Russo. And it was just, that kind of cemented me in the scene, like people seeing me play 4 instruments with the royalty of the Bay Area.
Unbelievable, man. I mean, that is just, I mean, that is a lot of, that's a lot. I mean, were you like channeling like Michael Urbaniak at some point on the violin? I'm just curious about like how, like the electric component, because I mean, like in the I mean, at a certain point, Jason Crosby definitely got tired of taking directives from a conductor, so you broke out of the classical mode. So I'm trying to get to the idea of like the electric. I was like maybe Ponte, but I mean just the idea that you're playing violin with Weir is just so absolutely hysterical. But who were some of your influences on the electric, the violin?
Well, the violin I have is kind of interesting. It's a 6-string acoustic violin, but has an amazing pickup setup, so it can be amplified and put in, plugged in just like an acoustic guitar, an electric guitar, with a 1/4-inch cable. But it has a viola, so it has the 4 strings of the violin, and also a viola C string, the low string of the viola. And also a cello string that's tuned down from G to F to keep it in fifths. So it covers almost the entire range of those 3 instruments, and that's really what Weir, saw that and was just like, "What the hell is that?" And he was so intrigued by the 6-string violin. But that's kind of how our whole relationship and rapport started, was through that instrument. And then he learned that I played the other ones and was impressed. And same thing with Phil. Phil saw me play that instrument at Terrapin Crossroads and didn't know that I played keyboards until the Encore theater show, that first show in New Jersey I did. Commended an old friend of mine and said, "Hey, you should play keys on the Encore with me." And I was like, "Well, shouldn't we tell Phil?" And he's like, "No." And I play with, but my influences on violin, I think are mainly from the classical world, because that I played it from age 2 to 17, and then I quit, and I didn't play it with Solar Circus. But I have to credit their guitar player Tom with finding it in the closet of my parents' house and being, saying to me, "What the hell are you doing? You should break this out." And it was a good move for me to do that. But I just kind of been self-taught, like in this genre. But in the recent year, I have been studying Jean-Luc Ponty, and I'm going to be playing with. Yeah, listening to those guys is scaring the hell out of me. But
like you predicted, your cell reception is a little bit shaky. You said Jean-Luc Ponty, and then you said who scared you? I missed that.
Oh, Jean-Luc Ponty and Jerry Goodman.
Well, I've interviewed both those cats. Yeah, I mean they're badasses. I mean, I don't even know how you necessarily. Here's my question though: after you came to Marin, and you had those cosmic experiences on the bandstand with Lesh and Weir, can you talk to younger peeps, especially about? I mean, what was the next step after that? I mean, those guys are going to love you guys. You can play with them almost any time you want, but you ultimately have to find. You got to sing for your supper. So, how did you cultivate? I mean, are you a hired gun, or would you say that you are leading your own band out there?
I would say that I'm multifaceted. Like there's a lot, in order for, as far as like my career as like paying the bills and doing what I do. I look at it as in kind of three parts. It's I have the Grateful Dead world with Phil and sometimes with Bob, and I've done gigs with Billy, and that world would be one part. And then, I just joined Jimmy Herring's band, The Invisible Whip, and, we're in the middle of 50 shows this half of the year. The next 25 next 25 out of 30 being with John McLaughlin and Mahavishnu. And that would be the second part. And then the third part is, and they're all equal. And the third part is Blue Rose Music, which is the record company artist collective that I'm part of, which is a Sonoma-based artist community that has Jackie Green and the Mother Hips and a bunch of other great local people and that we all, come together. We're making records. I'm doing my solo record through Blue Rose. I'm making records with Jackie and the Hips, and did one with David Lunning, whose album is doing well. I think that it was just on the season finale in Nashville, one of the tracks I played on. And, yeah, I'm a hired gun, but it's not that. I have my own thing, going on via Blue Rose. And I'm part of, Phil and the Terrapin Family Band asked me to join their band. So, we've done photo shoots, and, we're a band. So, I was joking with the Mother Hips guys yesterday when we were, starting to plot 2018. It's like everybody's thinking about doing about 50 shows. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm in about 7 bands, so I'll get 15 days off next year. And it's not far, that's not far from the truth. I mean, like right now, I'm in the middle of a stretch of really 2 months straight of doing something musical with one of these projects. It's like I did 3 weeks out on the road with Jimmy Herring, and then like the day that ended, I flew to New Mexico and worked with a producer friend of mine on a bunch of records for 4 days. And then the day I flew home from that, I went straight to Terrapin to rehearse with Bob and Phil, and play a couple shows, and straight from that to the studio with the Mother Hips. And it's just, and it's wonderful. I'm not complaining at all. It's, this is the life that
it's you've come a long way from the Rhinecliff Hotel. I don't know if you ever played that haunt up in Rhinebeck, New York. I mean, it's just the idea is that was there ever a point? I mean, does it feel? I mean, and it's great to have that many gigs. Do you feel like you would sometimes like to play 2, 3, 4 nights at a time at the same place as opposed to 4 different cities and I mean, what I'm trying to get at is that it's that ability to have. I mean, Lenny White told me this too. Like Art Blakey would come into San Francisco when there was a touring circuit for jazz for 2 weeks. So, cats would come in, they dig the music, and then they'd get to know the cats because they were accessible. And then they'd be like, I'm going to bring back like 3 more of my friends tomorrow. So basically, like, I mean, can you talk about the transient element of being a professional musician? Because there's so many younger peeps now who are like being told, you can pay to play or you can play for the door. But it's almost as if they're treating musicians as an art that can't be quantified, so therefore it's not professional. So I just want you to talk about that, the transient aspect of it, of being a professional musician in 2017.
Yeah, well, I mean, it gives me great appreciation, above and beyond the already, deep musical appreciation I have for Bob and Phil and the Grateful Dead. I got to say that, that being able to be a part of Phil's band is really great for me because we do so much stuff at Terrapin Crossroads, and Bob does stuff at Sweetwater, and it's 25 minutes from my house, half hour from my house. And when Phil goes to New York and goes to the Capitol Theater, we go for a week, or we go, and even with Jimmy, like on the tour that I just did with him, we would do a couple multiple night stands, and it helps, man, because it's like the transient nature is real, and it can get trying.
I know.
As far as just
I know.
Having to be in a different place, in a different hotel room, in a different place every single day, and I think the Jimmy Band paid its dues on this first tour. We played 6 nights a week, and granted, we had I think two cities where we did multiple nights, but other than that, it was like even after the show, you're driving 2 hours, checking into a hotel room at 4 a.m, and then you're checking out at 11, and finishing your 4-hour drive to the next city, and you're doing that in a van. And you're staying at a crappy hotel, and that's not the norm for me, but it was a good reminder of what the path that I came from, and how easily it can be that again. Luckily for us, it was the first time the band went out, so we didn't know how well it was going to do, and it turned out the shows were selling out. So from now on, we're in a bus, which doesn't make it like it makes it easier, but you still have that transient nature. You're still going from place to place, and yeah, boy, do I like being in one place at one time. That is a luxury to me.
Well, you've segued perfectly. We have a game on this program called Name That Voice. I want to put this in for you, take a listen to it, and then we'll come back and break it down, okay?
Okay.
Time, but I do now that's the way to get good as a band and as an individual, to really just accelerate your growth as a musician is just to play. And with Terrapin Crossroads, we have this opportunity to play. I mean, as Midnight North, we've grown. As the Terrapin family band, we've grown as a band. But, you know, I get to play with the guys from the Mother Hips all the time. I get to play with all of our other friends, you know, Jason Crosby all the time. And, you know, Brian Rashap and Scott Pat, you know, all these local guys who are in bands you might know, but they're, you know, Lebo and Steve from ALO all the time, Mickey Bloom all the time, and you just get to learn how to harmonize and how to sing with people, how to play songs you've never heard before in front of an audience. And at the same time, everyone's sort of growing the shared repertoire of, you know, the Dead, the band, Bob Dylan, the Beatles, and just, you know, adding their own parts to it and their own riffs on all that music. And so, I don't know, it's an always in progress sort of thing.
All right, Mr. Crosby, who do you got for us there? Who is that?
That is Graham Lesh.
That is Graham Lesh from last Saturday, totally unprompted, and he drops Jason Crosby's name, talking about the Enclave, talking about and I you know, again, we talked about the ego equalizer being LSD, but I'm curious about what are the things that you try to convey to peeps like Graham? I mean, first of all, Midnight North is an inspiring group; they're growing, but being that you, I mean, Strange Folk and so many luminary, God Street Wine. I mean, you were in that circuit for a long time, and you're sort of helping these cats learn the vernacular of traditional Americana. And I just wanted you to talk about not just, I'm sure it feels great, but what are the things that you try to get across on the bandstand to younger peeps so that the lineage of music continues to grow?
I think I think that I help provide, you know, non-musically, I think what I help provide is calm, because, you know, when I remember I was like this when I was young as well. It's like when you're young, you're excited and you're amped up, and sometimes that's good, and sometimes it you know, you can tighten up a little bit. And I think that, like, what I can help, you know, I'm not saying specifically with Graham, but with the younger cats that I get to play with, is that you know, no matter like what's going on, it's going to be okay. You know, like we might, you know, there might be a train wreck, and we might have just, you know, totally gone to the bridge before singing the second verse, but it's going to be all right. And generally I can just do that by just being myself. I don't think you know, I'm kind of observing myself from the outside. I don't think I'm doing that, you know, in the moment for any sort of specific reason, but I smile a lot, and I try, you know, I tend to, you know, spread the good vibe around the stage, you know, and then also, you know, I try to do the same musically, obviously, but personally, I feel like, you know, I like to play with people that I like. And so I like to get to know the people that I'm on stage with, and hope that I like them, and that's been a key element, I think, you know, is that, you know, I've become friends with all these guys, you know, like, and yeah, some of them, you know, might be 10, 15 years younger than me, but, you know, like, they feel like equals as friends and as bandmates. You know, and you know, sometimes that takes a little time, but it's definitely gotten there, and you know, and that's the most important thing to me is the camaraderie, because, you know, there's so many people you can play music with. There's no time to play with somebody who's, you know, you're not enjoying being around.
Were you always not hung up on making mistakes? I mean, I guess my question is that, you know, you talk about bringing calm to the bandstand. I mean, I'm a Gen Xer, you know, Graham and those cats, they're all millennials and all hyped up on, like, you know, we live in an age when you can get everything dialed in to the 0.0001 to perfection. And so,
Yep.
and so, can you talk a little bit? Could you give an example? You don't have to mention any names about what that really means about being able to get those cats to say it's okay. There are no wrong notes, or we did make a mistake, but let's move forward. I mean, let's keep cooking the groove.
Well, I could tell you when it happened to me.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I was playing with Robert Randolph, and I was still in my 20s, and we were opening for Santana, and Santana and I got into a conversation outside the venue about he just saw me outside having a smoke and was like, "Hey, man, what do you do?" And I was like the only white guy in the band, so I don't think he knew I was in the opening band. So I was like, "Hey, Carlos, I play violin in B3 with the opening act, Robert Randolph. Thanks for having us on the tour." And he's like, "Violin?" He's like, "I didn't know you played violin. You play violin?" And we started talking about the violin, and then he's like, "Man, I got a song. I got a song that would be great for you to sit in with us." And so I'm sitting in with Santana every night, and it's going great, and about the third or fourth night in, and my amp is crapping out on stage, and it's crackling, and we're in front of 20,000 people, and Santana's taking this guitar solo, and he's looking at me, and he's like, "You're next." And I was just like, "I don't know, man. My amp is, and the crew comes out and they're trying to fix the amp." And so he gives the guitar, he passes the solo to Robert. And while Robert's playing, then my amp gets fixed, and they give Carlos a thumbs up, and so now I'm next. And Robert's wrapping up his solo. They hand it off to me, and the same problem happens with my amp. Amp completely craps out. There's no way for me to play. I unplug my violin, and I walk off stage with my tail between my legs in front of 20,000 people.
Wow.
Walk off stage with Santana.
Wow.
And I'm convinced. I had convinced myself that I was no longer sitting in, and that I was a disgrace, and that blah blah blah, and all this. And then, the next day it's on the set list, and I say to, it's one of Santana's crew guys, like, is he cool? Is everything? And he's like, "Yeah, man." He's like, how many times, things get messed up and equipment gets, fried. He's just like, "Man, don't even worry about it." He's like, "Don't even think about that again," and that to me was an important moment that I've, tried to transfer into, real time of playing and all that stuff. Is like, you can't, there's certain things you can't control. And all we can do is do the best to, be as prepared as we are for the gig, and what happens is what's going to happen. So I know, like, that was a humbling moment for me, and it was a learning moment for me. So that just popped into mind.
Absolutely. No, it's or having some sort of thing that you can't control is a difficult thing. I mean, on the stage now, here's a question for you. I'd like you to talk, being that you've been all around this world, I just want to get Jason Crosby's conception of the idea that any note can be the one. You get lost in a jam, you go off in an improvisational jam, and the band has enough trust in each other where it doesn't matter, you lose the one, but then everybody comes back in on the one. And James Jamerson used to get so pissed off because people, there'd be like studio cats saying, like, "Where's the one? Where's the one?" And he's like, any note can be the one. And I just wanted you.
That's right.
I wanted you to talk about your conception of any note can be the one.
Well, I mean, I feel like it's two parts. Like, there's the rhythmic one, and then there's like the one of the melodic content you're playing. So, from a rhythmic standpoint, I know Phil Lesh, we always joke about this in the family band, where like some songs are in 4/4, some songs are in 3/4, some songs are in 6/8. We tend to play everything in one. So wherever we are is the one. And I think that is definitely, a good concept to have with the style of music that we're playing. We're not playing pop music.
No way.
We're not playing. People are dancing, but we're not playing dance music necessarily. You know what I mean? Where there's a square dance or a like where there's the one has to be defined, in order for your dance moves to fit, or like a traditional tango or something like that.
Sure, right.
So
I dig.
so it's like I think that works, from a rhythmic standpoint, and then from like a melodic standpoint. Again, I listen to like the song "Resolution" by Mahavishnu Orchestra, which is I've been listening to and just loving that tune. And it's like, you have this B flat, note and chunking kind of chord thing that's going on, and people are, and then like the melody and the chordal frame is in A, which is a half step lower than it. Then it's in B, which is a half step higher than it. These would all be considered wrong notes if you were playing a jam in B, and and somebody's playing a jam in B flat and somebody's playing a B natural. You'd be like, oh, wrong note, but it's not. It's it could be a lot of different things. It could be minor second or major seventh or whatever, or it could just be what the melody is, and the counterpoint happens to be a half step away, or displaced by an octave, or so I don't know if this is getting long-winded or
no,
too
you're doing. No, I love.
I
just know. Keep going. You're riffing, dude.
All right, right on. But I feel like it's kind of the same thing. It's it's where you are in the moment. Those are the notes you're playing. Those are the notes that people are listening to. And if you have, I think if you have some experience and training, it's not going to be wrong. I mean, if you've never played a musical instrument in your life and you think you can just do the random note theory and it's going to be musical, you're probably wrong.
Right.
But if you're living this life that we're all living, and really doing it, then yeah, I mean, like you can play whatever you want. I mean, Jimmy Herring and Jeff Sipe and Ricky Keller and I did a tour as this band called Project Z, where we had no tunes, and we just went out and we just played. And we played some funny stuff. We played some serious stuff. It was maybe more funny than serious, but it was, we had no plan whatsoever. And we would do things as crazy as Jimmy and Jeff would be going nuts on guitar and drums, and Ricky, the bass player, and I would go out and play marching band theme songs on the trumpet, walking through the audience, displaced by minor third, and just like, totally out there, but like, it was what we wanted to do. And so that's what we did. And some people could call that noise. Some people could call Ornette Coleman noise, or other, Cecil Taylor or whatever, but it's music, man. It's what these people are doing. And as long as people are responding and listening to it, I feel comfortable still doing it.
Oh, no, I mean, this is the other part of it, though, is that, like you said, if you're not, if you don't have a foundation in the rudiments, it's gonna sound like a mess. So
right.
To do it good, here's the question: explain to peeps out there who are like, "What is he talking about?" This is a sin. To what are the most important intangibles for a group collective consciousness to have in order for that paradigm to be danceable and for it to work?
Right. Well, okay. So my rhythmic answer would be like, well, you want it to still be grooving. You want it to be danceable and not just like an odd time signature for the sake of being odd.
Mm-hmm.
And the Grateful Dead are masters of that. So is John McLaughlin. So is John McLaughlin. And it's like, take something that's in, 7. But the drummer could play in 4/4 time for 7 bars, and and the other guys can do, it'll line back up, and that's to me where it really gets groovy and interesting, is where it doesn't feel like you're doing it for the sake of being, hip, it's like, oh, well, this, this feels good, and a lot of people will write riffs. I'm sure Jerry wrote some of these riffs that are an odd time, not counting, but just like, this is my riff. And then Phil probably counted. It was like, whoa, this is a 7, Jerry, Like, I mean, I wasn't there, but I would imagine that's how it went.
Right.
And as far as like harmonically goes, like if somebody's like, well, how does that work? Like if you're holding down a B flat with, your thumb and your pinky on the left hand on a piano, how does that A chord or B chord work? Well, take the time and analyze it. Think about it. Like, okay, well, the third of an A chord is a C sharp or D flat, which would be the minor third of your B flat. So like what does it bring out in you? What emotions does it bring out in you? And is that the right emotion? And then you can just apply that to anything. You can be playing, you could be playing, like sometimes I'll play a solo in Scarlet Begonias with the family band and with Phil and stuff, and it'll get towards the end of the progression, and I'll do that. I'll play that big fat B chord. Phil drops that bomb, and then all of a sudden I start moving and I'm playing in C. And
Right.
the band will look over, but
Right.
I'll get back there.
I love it. I
And
love it.
It always elicits a smile from Phil, because he knows, like I didn't screw up. I'm taking us to a little place. We're gonna go on a little journey, and we're back.
Oh, I freaking love. I love. So. If you could, when you play with Billy Croy, see Billy is I mean, I've been looking for that cat for 6 years, but the thing is that, because the more I listen to it, you talk about Jerry coming up with riffs and Phil actually counting them out. Did Kreutzmann make it danceable music in the sense that he was able to, I mean, a lot of people said, I've talked to cats, I won't mention names, but they say, the band used to joke, well, let's get a bass player. Phil can stay in the band, but let's get a real bass player, like someone who, because Phil is soloing. And I'm just curious about, how the drummer is supposed to keep things. How did Billy fit into what you just were talking about? Or how does a drummer fit into that so that they are ultimately holding it down? Because otherwise, I mean, like you said, otherwise you're just wanking it up there.
Yeah, well, I mean, with those guys, from my experience and my perspective, they spent so much time as a collective and so much time playing that music with everybody's part being really essential to the collective, that, like, it's taken me a little bit of time to understand it, but, like, it all works when it's together. But then when it's separated and they start playing with new people, it's kind of like this transition for everyone, because like, like for Weir, for example, like some of those things that he plays are just, it's so on its own, like, you're like, what is he doing? And then when you hear it with everybody, it's like, what he's doing is playing the most perfect part.
Exactly.
And it's right in the hole where Phil's not playing, right in the hole where the drums have a little space, and it's locking in, but by itself, it's like, I don't know, I'm not sure what this is, and my early playings with Phil, I was like, when I play with Phil and friends, mainly on the bigger stages, not so much at Terrapin, but I'll have a bass amp, on my side of the stage, because Phil and I are on the opposite sides of the stage, and so I'll have my own bass amp that I dial in. I want to hear every note that he plays, and I want to, and it's taken me some time, but I feel like I now completely understand what he's doing.
Wow.
And at first I used to joke about it, and it was, I thought that Phil's playing was like, he was like trying to decode some sort of, space code. And, and in order to do that, you have to try every single combination of note and rhythm over a song. And then if you get it, you unlock this key that opens the secret to the universe or something.
Right.
Because it was just like, it was hard for me at first to understand what it was. But I feel like I get it now. And to me, what it is it's pure freedom. It's like, I know Phil knows those songs so well and is so inside them that it's just, like, that's what he's doing. That's how he's always played the bass, and that's what he does, and there's a way, and to me it's musical. To me, like, I don't feel like you need another bass player. I think he's the perfect bass player for that music, like,
absolutely. No, I mean, that was always sort of the a lot of people will say things like that. Well, Phil was just so out, but it's to me, it's like, it's not. It was unique. I mean, a lot of those cats, whether it was Kingfish, Garcia Band, Donna Keith. I mean, the only cat that didn't have a band in the 70s and 80s, Phil did have he was called Too Loose to Truck. I don't know if you've ever heard that band before. It's unbelievable. but he didn't really have a working band. And but at the same time, when he drops that bomb, and it's also about the space and when you're actually putting those notes down. And do you feel like you talked about that band having the opportunity to just coalesce on stage night after night, like with Mother Hips or bands?
Yeah.
I mean, like do you feel like the same that trust is coalescing in the same way with a band like Mother Hips for you, in the sense where you're just feeling and you know that where things are going to turn and how they're going to turn and when they're going to turn?
I feel like we're getting there. I feel like with the family band and with Mother Hips and Jackie, I feel like we're getting there. I feel like that is starting to happen. With my brother who I play with in New York, I played a show with him and an old friend of mine, Dave Diamond, who was in the Zen Tricksters and a bunch of bands, and we played together.
Oh, hold on. Dave Diamond and I were bunkmates at a summer camp for 14 summers in upstate.
Oh my God!
In upstate New York. Yeah.
Okay.
No, he went to. So Dave, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Dave and I are homies, old Long Island homies, and Bill Titus, a guitar player who was in that Long Island band Rainbow Trout for a million years, funk band. The four of us, we've been playing together since the '90s, and we had a show, and we hadn't played together I think all year, and it was the most unbelievable mental telepathy experience that I've had, and it just takes time. And the more time you do it, the closer you're going to get to it. So I feel like I'm really getting there with the West Coast guys, and I still have it with my East Coast guys, and that's where you want to be. You want to be up there, like not even have to think about anything, and with or without the help of the psychedelics, like just being up there and just not just being people, being musicians, just being connected to your instrument and just playing for your audience, not really thinking about much else.
But one final question in set one here. I would love to do set two with you at some point, but in set.
I got a couple more minutes, but I'd be happy to.
Yeah,
call
no,
back
we'll
and
just
do another.
We'll do it. We'll do it again. I'm having a ball, but just I would love you to talk about. The first time that you crossed paths, this is the person who actually even hit me to you to begin with. She mentioned your name, and that's how hermetically sealed I am off in Tucson. I just was hoping you could talk about the first time that you saw or crossed paths with Leslie Mendelson and how she has grown as an artist in this enclave of musicians.
Awesome. Well, Leslie Mendelson was in a band called Mother Freedom, another Long Island girl.
She went to my high school. She went to my high school.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
so we knew each other way back when I had short hair and she had long hair.
Right. Right. That's what she said to me. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we always were intrigued by one another's playing and personalities, and just dug each other. And then there was, I don't know, years or decades apart. And then, through separate avenues, we both landed at TRI Studios at the same time. Me just a hair ahead of her, a month or two ahead of her. Her manager at the time is also the manager for The Who. And Pete Townsend was doing an audiobook with TRI, and so there was a connection where where she was introduced to the people at TRI, and they brought her down, and like I said, it was a couple months after I started doing the weekly webcast, and there we were, reconnected. And the first show that we did together, I was down in LA, and I think she was living there or down there at the time. And so I flew down to LA for some other stuff, and then we reconnected down there, did some work in a studio, and then drove up the coast together and kind of bonded on our drive north. And then I remember we had to sing harmonies on Truckin' with Weir, and we didn't have really time to we didn't have time to rehearse it. So we sent a video. I'm behind the wheel, and she's in the passenger seat, and we send this video to Bob. Using my perfect pitch, we knew what note to base it on, and we sent
R2 harmony. So like, he could listen to the text message and sing along to see if we got it right. And then we texted Weir the video, and then he wrote back saying, "Hey, that looks good." And then we got to the studio and we did it, and it was like, those experiences with her, like the early days of me being in California and early days of her renaissance of, landing the Kimmock gig and all the other things that she's been able to do. It's been great to do that together. And, we don't see each other that often, but when we do, it's always special.
Well, I was just going to say that I think Justin Kreutzmann and the cat who was running TRI discovered her at a bar in England,
Yep.
and they said, "Oh, she's ahead.
That's right.
She's ahead." But I'm more interested
Yep.
in part two. I do want to touch on, Jason Crosby with short hair in Long Island. We're going to go back into the trenches there.
Yeah, and I'd love to talk to you about my new record too. It's coming out next month, and it's kind of a departure from my other stuff. So
let's do it.
We can get into that.
Let's do it. All right, listen, man. It was so great to connect with you, man. I'll get you a copy of this later, and have a ball, man. Keep doing it.
Thanks, brother.
Later on.
Take care, Jake.
Peace, man.
All right, bye.
Later. Jason Crosby, another part of the Jake Feinberg Show, another part of the lineage. We'll be back with Deacon Bunnell after this.
Basically, and